In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, God is one. Amen. Well, that's be a surprise to everybody coming into this, because for 3 months we have not 10 at 10. So there's nobody here at the moment, so I can pretty well say whatever I like. What I'd like to say is this: it's good to be feeling well again, and thank God for that. It's quite a long time since I really felt well. One of the problems was that I was put onto beta blockers. And let me tell you, that really does sap your energy. You feel really, really strange, not for yourself. Anyway, we're going to carry on where we left off. One or two changes you'll notice. I'll try and make it a bit shorter, and we'll only be doing this on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so not on Monday and not on Friday. Not on Monday because I need to take some time off during the week, and not on Friday because the place is heaving with people cleaning, and it's just not practical. There's too many bumps and bashes, and everybody needs to get into the cupboard, which is behind me, to get vacuum cleaners and mops and other stuff like that. Later on today, you might well hear early comers coming to decorate the narthex, which is being redone. I think probably in a peachy colour, but I'm colourblind, so I don't really know. Anyway, today we're going to be looking at Luke chapter 16, verses 1 to 8. So we'll be getting on with that one. Good morning, Christos. God bless you. We'll also have, as time goes past, other channels and things. So if you want to send me questions in the comments underneath, rather than in the whatever this is called, the live chat, then I can answer those later on. For example, somebody sent me a comment, Simon sent me a comment about Lent, asking me, well, what is Lent? I was worried in case it's a foolish question, but it's not a foolish question. One assumes inside church that people know what you're talking about, but people who are new to this game obviously don't. And there are lots of other things like that we'll just mention, and like people say, well, what do you mean by the word gospel? And it's worthwhile just checking. And there's no embarrassment for not knowing something. It's much better to do that than pretend you do know and have no clue what it is the person's going on about. Now look at this. Look at this. New mug. And it's got on it one of my very favourite things. I don't know who it was who sent me this, but whoever you are, thank you very much indeed. God bless you. It's a Christmas. It says All Saints on the side because the church here is All Saints of Lincolnshire. That's the Saints of Lincolnshire, which there are 401. Something I always say: pray, love, forgive. Don't think you can go terribly far wrong if you do that. Jesus, good morning, Sabah khair, Kalimera, Sabah Noor. It's nice to be seen, as a friend of mine used to say. Anyway, without any further ado and a nice slip of tea, let's get going. So Luke chapter 16, verses 1 to 8, and the first little section of 8, not the whole of it. It's a puzzling story, and as per usual, both the church fathers and also scholars down the ages have spent an awful lot of time scratching their heads, rearranging their fleas, and wasting a lot of ink on this matter. And after all that, we still don't come anywhere near understanding what is going on. Just heard somebody come in through the door to collect a shovel or a spade and some gardening gloves because we're moving all the plants while we're still able to. Anyway, here we go. Chapter 16, verses 1 to 8. Jesus also said to his disciples, there was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. So he called him and said to him, what's this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be my steward. Then the steward said within himself, "What shall I do? For my master is taking the stewardship away from me. I cannot dig, I am ashamed to beg. I have resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses." So he called every one of his master's debtors to him, and said to the first, "How much do you owe my master?" And he said, 100 measures of oil. So he said to him, "Take your bill, and sit down quickly, and write 50. Then he said to another, "And how much do you owe?" So he said, 100 measures of wheat. He said to him, "Take your bill, and write 80. So the master commended the unjust steward, because he had dealt shrewdly. Wow, that sounds a bit naughty, doesn't it? And there's a lot of time spent and worry about who that last master is. Are we talking about the master, i.e. the Lord Jesus Christ, or are we talking about the owner of the household, the steward's master? In either case, it's a bit tricky to decide. Now let's go through this bit by bit, because it's quite a tricky little parable, this one. So it's worthwhile having a better look at it. So first little bit, Jesus says to his disciples, well, we need to know what the context is here. There have been 3 parables already, there are going to be some more. There are 3 parables already about people who are lost and now found, people who were deserters, or they had gone, or they had got lost, who are now welcomed back into the fold. There's a sheep that's carried back, there's the coin that is dropped, and then finally there's the prodigal son. If you want to know more about the prodigal son, you'll have to listen to my sermon from Sunday, or anybody else's sermon for that matter, from Sunday, because that deals with that. But essentially, it's things that got lost that are now being found, and the importance of that. And now the Lord changes tack somewhat. The Lord is heading towards Jerusalem, and he's going to be crucified. He knows very well this is going to be a time of terrible crisis for his inner disciples, his students, his mathetes, his students, and they're going to find it catastrophic. So what do you do when you have a catastrophic situation in front of you? And the answer basically in this parable is, well, you don't lose your head. You don't show self-pity, and you use all the wisdom and the cunning that God has given you to get through the catastrophic situation. That's basically what it is. So let's have another look. All the other business is to one side. Lovely tea. My favorite, which is Assam tea. And the Sainsbury's Assam tea is my favorite of the Assams. It's much more sort of caramelly and nutty than the other ones. There was a certain rich man, we don't care about him, who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. The Greek actually says scattering his goods. Now the word there, accusation, is a really important one. The infinitive of it is diabalin. Okay, diabalin. An accusation, something that somebody's thrown out about him. Now, every single time this is used within the New Testament, it is used as a false accusation. So I think we can assume that this is meant to be a false accusation. The man has not been scattering the rich man's goods. This is a false accusation from somebody who is malicious towards him. Okay? And a diabalin, a false accusation, is brought to the rich man that the steward is wasting, he's scattering his goods. Naturally, the rich man is going to be cross, but he doesn't do what he should do, which is look into the matter. He decides he's going to sack his steward. So he called him and said to him, verse 2, "What's this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward. So bring me accounts, I'm going to sack you." Now, that wasn't very sensible, the rich man. Nowadays, if somebody's going to be sacked, people make sure that they can no longer get access to the computer system of the company or the till or anything like that. And the books are closed and taken away from whoever it is. And then they're given a cardboard box, they empty their desk, and off they go, leaving behind the company car key as they disappear. But in this particular case, this has not happened, and the steward is still there with the books in front of him. And this is where we suddenly discover what the value of this steward is. So he's worried. Verse 3, "Then the steward said within himself, 'What shall I do? For my master is taking the stewardship away from me. I cannot dig. I am ashamed to beg. I resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses.'" Do you notice here that there's no self-pity? A catastrophe has come upon him. Because he has been unjustly accused, his world is going to fall around his ears. And instead of sitting there and saying, "Oh, woe is me, I don't know what to do," or just allowing the situation to take control of him, which would mean that he'd have to go and dig holes in other people's ground and beg from the people that used to owe him money. Well, he doesn't want to do both of those things, either of those. He's a man of much higher status than somebody who's going to be digging holes, and very much more status than somebody who's going to be sitting by the side of the road begging for alms. He's an intelligent man. So he decides he's going to do something quite cunning. And it's this cunning that the Lord is actually saying to us that we need to do. So his plan involves the following wonderful things. Number one, he's going to get his own back on his master. His master has unjustly sacked him. He's saying, at the end of this, you'll be worse off. Number two, he's going to win himself some friends. So when the time comes and he is actually sacked, he can go and join them in their houses and be welcomed in. And we'll see the extent to his welcome in a moment. It's going to cost him nothing. He's not going to cancel anything that they owe to him. Now, the steward would have been receiving a commission on all the sales. That's how they got paid. They didn't get paid in any other way. It's up to them to set out a commission. They got paid, and therefore, the more you sold, the more you got paid. The better the master did, the better the steward did. Quite a good situation. It's going to cost him nothing. And he shows absolutely no self-pity. He's not sitting there worrying about his, "Oh, poor old me," that sort of thing. He's cracking on with deciding what to do, so that they may receive me into their houses. He's always going to find friends in other places. So that's what he does. Verse 5. "So he called every one of his master's debtors to him. He said to the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' And he said, 100 measures of oil." Now that is an absolutely enormous amount of oil. If you sold that, it would sell for something round about 1,000 denarii. Now, 1,000 denarii is about 3 years' wages for a workman. So we're talking about a really large amount of money, a huge amount of debt. Now, the way that this worked was like this. You probably know that in Judaism, as in Christianity until recently, charging interest or usury on money or other things was not allowed. So, on the other hand, you had to make some sort of profit. And the way they got round this, in a nice little technicality, was this. Let us say that I sold you a measure of oil, we write down on the bill that I sold you 2 measures of oil, and therefore you had to pay me 2 back, but you only got 1. Let's say that I sold you 100 measures of corn. I only actually gave you 80 measures, but expected 100 back. And that's how that worked. So there's no usury, not according to law, but it was actually a crooked way of doing it. And then on top of that, you would have the steward's commission, probably another 10%. So you have this extraordinary legal fiction going on. So the person who received the oil received not 1,000, not 100 measures, but 50. Okay? And that's what it is that the unjust steward is going to ask back. So again, instead of the rich man getting twice as much as he gave away back, he'll only get back what he gave. So he'll make no profit. He said 100 measures of oil. So he said, take your bill, sit down quickly and write 50. So in other words, what he actually borrowed. Then he said to another, and how much do you owe? He said 100 measures of wheat. He said to him, take your bill and write 80. In other words, what he had borrowed. So the rich man is then going to get back what he gave away without any profit at all. And that is a shocking thing. And you'll find that various scholars and the church fathers and so on go through about, well, how can this be justified? It's thoroughly dishonest and very naughty. But that's not really what's being justified. It's the behavior in crisis situation of the steward. So verse 6 and 7, he quickly defrauds his master and wins himself friends, and he keeps his own commission. So we get from this, verse 8 actually, first part of verse 8. So the master commended the unjust steward because he had dealt shrewdly. And that's the end of the parable. Quite often people carry on and say the rest of it's the end of the parable as well, but that doesn't make any sense at all. Ends the parable. Then the rest of it is a gloss from St. Luke. So a bit of an addition from St. Luke. So from this, number 1, the steward acts decisively in a crisis. And before very long, all the disciples are going to have their own crisis, terrible crisis. The Lord will be crucified. Then he'll rise from the dead. Then he will send down the Holy Spirit at Pentecost. Then they have to get on with it. They have to bring the gospel to all nations all over the world, and all of them, bar John, are going to find themselves dying in the most excruciating ways, sometimes literally excruciating, because they too will be crucified. The second one is, so he's decisive, the first one, in a crisis. Second one is that in this crisis, he's shrewd. He doesn't just sit there and allow things to happen to him. He says, why? My goodness, I must do something about this. What can I do? He's level-headed and sensible about it. And that again, when the crisis comes, and the crisis always does come eventually, you have to say, right, I'm going to sit quietly, decide what I'm going to do. What is the best way through this for the gospel? How can I come to terms with what's happening around me that will keep the gospel safe? He's not self-pitying, and neither must the apostles be when they are being stoned to death, or flayed, or crucified, or boiled, or beaten to death with clubs, or having their heads cut off, or anything like that. They cannot be self-pitying. This is what they have signed up for. The world, which in this case is the rich ruler, is going to find all sorts of accusations that are false against them and condemn them. And now what they need to do is find a way through it. Don't be self-pitying. Crack on. There's someone like St. Paul who's been in prison for ages. He doesn't sit there crying into his handkerchief. He takes out his pen, he licks the end of it, he gets writing letters all over the place. And then finally, he takes matters in hand. He acts to get through this situation. Sometimes the situation will be overwhelming, but he acts to get through it. And this is what it is that the Lord is saying to us that we must do as well. In this particular parable, of course, the Lord is on the way to Jerusalem. So there's another layer here too. A crisis is going to come on everybody who hears what the Lord is saying. And they too have to act shrewdly. They have to act with decisiveness. They cannot put off the problem any further. They are, as it were, about to be sacked. The Lord will go to Jerusalem. He's not coming back. He's going to be crucified. And that's their chance over and this stage of the gospel. So you listen, you have to act decisively. Get on with it. Now you too need to follow Christ. And if that means taking shocking action, like defrauding your master, then get on with it. Okay, get on and defraud them. And there we are. So, God willing, tomorrow we will carry on with this. Let's see if anybody's saying anything. No, I think no. We've got another one here. Got Christina. Am I seeing things? Rub's eyes. Good morning to very, very early. Good morning to Christina. Good morning. God bless you. We've got another 9 people here. Had 10 or 11 turn up. I expect nobody's expecting this, but slowly we'll get back to where we were. Lots of people to pray for. I've been carrying on praying for all the ones I've been praying for anyway. And I was just about to say, top of that list is Erin's son, who is still very ill. And if you could please pray for him, Joe, and keep him in your prayers. But also, I think, obviously, with the rest of the world, we need to be praying very much indeed for the people in Turkey and Syria. I'm an Antiochian priest, and obviously Antioch is in Turkey. It's been hit very badly by this particular earthquake, as indeed has the whole region. And our Patriarch has particularly asked that everybody should pray for the people who are finding their lives devastated in this way in the Antiochian, inverted commas, territory in the Middle East. So please do. It's very, very terrible thing that's happened. Shrewdly, be wise like serpents, yes. In Greek, the word is the same, maybe the meaning too. Yeah, when the Lord told us to be as wise as serpents and as gentle as doves, we have to take him seriously. It says this elsewhere, not in this particular thing, but same message. You find so many Christians who are as gentle as doves, and so many who are as wise as serpents, but you need every dove must actually have that serpentine interior, and every serpent must have that dove-like interior. We're called to be both, to be as wise, as cunning, as slithery as serpents, and also as open and as gentle and as peaceable as a dove, the two things together. Okay? Bev, good morning. God bless you. Right, well, I'm just going to show you this mug again. One of my main messages to people, along with others that people have noticed. It's interesting seeing what other people see. Every day is Pascha. Every day is Christmas Day. And also pray, love, forgive. We're not going to have daily meetings, Christos. We're going to meet on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday, I mean, the reason why I haven't done this is because my blood pressure went right up through the roof. 200 over 100, catastrophic. I was really quite ill. I was overwhelmed with it. I did a 10 at 10, became very poorly. I am cutting back my work level to a sensible amount. So I'm not going to work 96 hours per week. I'm not going to work 80 hours per week. I'm not going to work 60 hours a week. I'm going to keep it to around about 40 hours per week. Sometimes it's going to be more than that, but I shall make up for it by working a lesser amount of times other times. So a good way of doing this is having a slightly quieter day on Mondays. And on Fridays, I help with the cleaning of the church, which is good for me. It's good for everybody else, because you know how it is when you're doing something together with people. They get to talk. And not so, the priest is also cleaning out the bins and stuff, then alongside you, then he's approachable. Okay, there we go. So that's what that's about. So 3 days a week, we'll keep it to that. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I'm going off to give Kyrie Eli Holy Communion. Then I'm going to bless one house, maybe two, I think one house. And God willing, all being well, with a fine wind behind us, it's a beautiful day here, by the way, we shall do this again tomorrow. Okay, so you can see that Erin is here again. God bless you. Frank, good morning. It's lovely to see you. It was lovely to see your daughter and grandson the other day. Hopefully they'll be up again before very long. It's Melengeth and Henry. Suzanne, good morning. God bless you. We're seeing Suzanne and David Sunday. You're coming Sunday? I think that's correct. Every day is St. Valentine's Day. Well, why not? And certainly people who are married every day, like in the parable, we should be giving to everybody else, actually, the best of ourselves. You know, the steward goes to the bridegroom and says, "You've kept the best till now." And each of us should be keeping the best of ourselves for everybody else until now. Then tomorrow, better me for you, and a better you for me. Okay? on that note, be like the steward. Take hold of the crisis. God bless you.